So let's get into the good work that you're doing. And before we do that, 5 years ago, this pandemic started, threw us all into the unknown. We all had to navigate and find our way out, and hopefully, we're better and stronger because of living through it. So, ultimately, how much of living through that time period has influenced what you do in your work today in 2025?
Tremendously. I mean, I am a little unusual in that I have long-term worked from home for big chunks of my career, including really, I mean, before that was much of a thing.
Yeah.
So, um, for me, the working from home wasn't a disruption. I was set up for it. It's actually, I personally really prefer working from home. Um, what surprised me though was how high my tolerance was for I um, and so for me, I was one of the folks who really thrived, not with the risk because I have autoimmune disease, I'm high risk. I'm one of the folks who really benefited from speed of vaccination and all the medical developments that happened. Um, but so the suffering was really harmful. Um, but as far as like working conditions and my mental health, I thrived. It helped me figure out the extent of my introversion, and stop trying to mask that. And also the became more familiar with how my brain works and how my brain works well and doesn't, in different conditions to be able to design working conditions that really work for me.
So let's get into the good work you do, and to get a better understanding of it, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's career day. Let's say they're 10 or 11 years old, fifth grade, and one of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I would say, so you know how, first I would ask a question and say, does anyone in here play sports? And a whole bunch of hands would go up.
Yeah.
And I'd ask, does anyone in here play games? And a whole bunch of hands would go up. And I'd say, all right, so do you only play sports when you know you're going to win? And kids are like, no, 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 no. No, you have to lose sometime. I'm like, okay, well, do you only play games to win? No, I play games to play with my friends. I have to learn. You can't always know how to win right off the bat. And then I would say, I hate to break it to you, but you all are going to forget all of that when you move into the workplace. So when we move into the workplace, um, we are very quickly conditioned to mind read, to try to understand external expectations, to try to figure out how to align to, in some companies, the extent of their goal setting is we're going to raise revenue 10% year over year, and try and figure out how to align to that. So workplaces train and condition the awareness that kids have
Yeah.
about sports and game playing, and that we have to lose to win, we have to lose to grow, um, conditions it right out of us. And I help put that back in. So, with collaborative goal setting practices and collaborative mindset work, we rewire our brains to bring what we knew when we were kids about goal setting and performance into the workplace.
It's amazing how many things we are taught in the education system, but things that are so evident like this, like getting together and being efficient, is just something that we have to learn from all of these satellite disciplines that we're immersed in, whether it's sports or theater or groups or clubs or whatever. It's like it's almost as though we have to become adults to get this specialized training to teach us exactly how to do that. Isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah. I mean, the weirdest part for me is I come from strategy. Most of my career has been in strategy, which is this esoteric thing. People don't know what that means. But basically, I look at facts and observations and data to derive insights that then those insights are like the interesting or unique nuggets that other things get built on top of. So strategists provide scaffolding for a lot of what you see in the world, even if you don't see the strategy itself. I got into this goal setting specialty because I was leading a team of 10 incredible young strategists, young and mid-career strategists. And I realized I couldn't communicate to them what was expected of us because I couldn't figure it out myself. So
Yeah.
I started doing self-set goal setting, and it changed everything. Like setting goals that I cared about that were in alignment with my company's interest, but that I had some influence over, that I got out of bed every morning excited to go to work on. That led me to where I am now. But the weirdest thing about it is I mentioned my husband's at Daytona. I have another life in motorcycle racing.
Yeah.
And the thing that surprises me the most is how much I learn in professional motorcycle road racing that helps cement what I'm doing with organizations and people in
Yeah.
the world. Because, like, it's a team sport. What we see is the rider on the bike on the track, but racing is a team sport, and we fail over and over and over and over just to make the grid.
Yeah.
And then once you make the grid, you fail over and over and over and over to work your way up the standings until you're winning.
Yeah.
So I've really benefited from those lessons, because I am, I'm type A, I'm wired for perfectionism. It's an unhealthy trait for me. I really struggle with I have really struggled with, having to build in public and try and share messy work. All of that runs counter to my wiring. But we go out to the racetrack and that's exactly what we do. So it
Yeah.
helps build those muscles.
Absolutely. So, who has been, or let's go back to the third grade, the fifth grade, I should say. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream life?
So hard to say. My childhood is not super accessible to me because I'm a trauma survivor. So my brain is not awesome when it comes to recalling. But what I do remember is I had a stretch where I wanted to be a vet until my horse died in high
Oh,
school. And then I was like, ooh, that's not for me.
yeah.
But the things that I've always known, I always wanted to be a teacher and I always wanted to be a writer. And I was, of course, you know, largely discouraged from pursuing those things as careers. But I'm really grateful that I had some mentors who nurtured me as a writer, and that I found my way into teaching. What I do is teach. I do it under the guise of coaching and consulting. But I really love that I get to live that 9-year-old dream, even if I don't get, all I wanted was to draw on the vis-a-vis. Do you remember overhead projectors?
Oh, yeah.
That was it. I wanted, to work the mimeograph and draw on, and I don't get to do that teaching, but I do get all the other cool stuff about being a teacher these days.
Yeah. So, who's been that inspiration for you, that kind of heroic force that's helped you in your life and your career?
One that's really top of mind, I mentioned writing mentors. One that's really top of mind right now because she just passed away is Lorraine Farah. She was a writing coach in my grade school when I was a kid. She published a poem I wrote about Lily of the Valley from my mom's yard in one of her books. And when I saw my poem in print, that told me I could be a writer. Um, and, it's taken a long time, but my first books are going to print this month. So,
Yeah.
um, so Lorraine was always with me, you know, encouraging me to write and to tell the truth and to take risks in my writing. So Lorraine looms really large for me right now. I really wanted her to see my book. So, I'm sad that she isn't around to see it, but but I hope she knows the impact she had on all of us as kids. Um, and then, beyond, it's weird. Like I've listened to your episode, so I knew this question was coming, and I was like, I just can't answer. It's like I
Yeah.
draw a different inspiration as I go. I learn so much from watching how people do things. It's a strategist thing. It's probably hard for me to answer this question because there's a million
Yeah.
references in my head. But another one that does stand out, I was thinking about last night because I've been really lucky. I have a client right now. I'm going to give a shout out to Andrea, um, and a former boss named Martha, who are the most humane, brilliant business acumen leaders I've ever worked with. And so I spent most of my career learning about leadership by seeing what not to do.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. Martha planted that seed years ago that leadership could look different. And then to see, I get to work with clients now who do it different every day is just super rewarding and
Yeah.
inspiring.
So speaking of being an author, what was your favorite book? What is your favorite book?
Oh, oh, you can't ask a reader that because
I
there's
know
been
it's bad. Or
one.
what genre, what rises to the top?
No, I can't answer the question. I have one all-time favorite book, and it's a curveball. In fact, it's probably within arm's reach right now, but
Yeah.
it's The Eye of the Albatross by Carl Safina.
Yeah.
It's a book. It's super nerdy, super sciency, about seabirds and their migration and their life cycle. But there's a quote in that book about how what makes everything, this is a paraphrase, not a quote, but what makes everything is conflict. It's the friction of things moving together and, the difficulty in life that makes it what it is. And that quote was on the front page of a training when I did mediation training back when I was practicing law. And that quote changed me forever. Like
Oh,
I'd been conflict averse, super accommodating, didn't know how to handle conflict until I did that training in mediation and conflict resolution, saw that quote, read the book. And that's to this day, when I think about if I have to pick one,
yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah. I just was looking it up. I'm gonna have to get my hands on that. I love birds, so I love like now too that we're kind of going through the spring thing. I'll just like the other day, I think yesterday, I just saw all these birds with white wings flying around in a big gaggle, and I was wondering what's going on. And those things are just they're fascinating to me.
Yeah, if my sweater wasn't on, my arm is covered with birds. So
Okay, cool.
that's
Very
the
cool.
yeah. Um, yeah.
Perfect. So
You,
let me ask you this. Oh, sorry, you had a little bit of a delay there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just said you'll never see birds the same
Okay.
after reading the book. Yeah.
I remember when my son was born and we were getting ready to go into labor and all of that. Wing Migration came out at the time. And I really wanted to watch that to comfort me. I love geese and I love the way they filmed that was just magical.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're dealing with heavy things with clients and helping them charter a better course. You have to shoulder that. But you also are a human being with a life and a soul that you have to nurture. What is your motivation every day to wake up to do all of that to the best of your ability?
To make things, um, my motivation to get up every day is that people suffer less than I did in my career. It's taken me a really long time to realize that career doesn't have to mean suffering. Career can be joyful, it can be growth focused. Our work can be rewarding and rewarded. Our work can be deeply meaningful. And I had a outwardly successful early and mid-career. I loved what I did. I loved what I did when I worked in strategy, especially worked with the most amazing creative people. To this day, my most incredible collaborators are still from that era, and a lot of my best friends are still from that era. So there was a lot of great in my career, but I I felt like I had to conform or perform a certain standard of professionalism. And I was told that all the time. I was told what that was, and it was telegraphed to me what that was. And that's not what I am in my natural self. And it just took me a really, really long time to find the confidence and self-possession to just say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do my career in the ways that feel good to me and deal with the consequences. I'd rather deal with the consequences of that than deal with the consequences of masking and stuffing myself into a box that doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
So that's it, really.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Let's say you get into a room full of all of the clients that you've worked with in your life, colleagues that you've worked with, and you could walk through that group of people and go to a podium on a stage, and you can tell all of them one fun thing about you they may not know, a fun story, something that would humanize you in a different way to them. What would you tell that group of people?
I mean, there's one that I think is just really formative for me. I was 9 years old. I was in the third grade, and I brought my lunch from home. I was a brown bag lunch kid. And I didn't get to have hot lunch, which was the cool thing at the time, was hot lunch. Um, and but I did buy my milk with my 25 cents or whatever every day. And on Fridays, the hot lunch kids got chocolate milk, but the quarter milk kids had regular milk. And I thought that was just absolutely unfair. So I started a petition. I had a successful petition. I petitioned the cafeteria staff to have milk equality for the hot lunch and the milk kids, and I was successful. And to the day I graduated high school, I was the chocolate milk girl to all of the cafeteria staff. But for me, it was my first taste of successful activism.
Yeah.
And I never came back from that. I mean, I am still that kid saying, and I'm so proud of little me for taking action.
Yeah.
Uh, but but it hasn't changed. I mean, I am still that person who looks around and says, this isn't right. How can it be more equitable?
Yeah.
Or how can things be different and better for everyone? And I'm just really grateful for that little kid and that success
Yeah.
because that planted the seed that I can change things.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So let me ask you this, of all of these things that you've done and accomplished in your life, evolved into at this point, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I am proudest that I am practicing building in public
Yeah.
right now. Um, it's really, really counter to I mean, my entire upbringing, my trauma history, my conditioning, my messages I got while I was a kid, it's counter to everything for me to be doing what I'm doing now. Um, it's counter to my cognitive wiring, my personality, to be putting myself into the world through work that literally just comes out of my brain. Um, and I'm really proud of myself for that because it's not about me. It's going to help people. It's going to help other people who just need a couple little puzzle pieces of practices to fill in gaps in their heuristics or, their mental toolkit or workplace toolkit. It's what I do just fills a couple of gaps that people don't even realize we have.
Yeah.
They cause so much frustration, so much pain, so much misunderstanding in the workplace. And if I can help people have more joyful, more satisfying, more intrinsically motivated careers. I can't do that if I don't do everything counter to my wiring and put myself out there and share my work. So, so I'm just really proud of myself that I get up every day and do that.
So at the end of the day, Sarah, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, all of the listeners to your podcast, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am. That's funny that the first thing that popped into my head was I am a Libra or I am a Leo rising. I'm a Libra sun sign, and that is what everyone sees. But there's so much roar in me um, that if I had to choose one word, I think it would be activist.
Yeah,
And then the second word would shock the sorry, I almost just said a bad word, but it would like it shocks me that the second word that comes to mind is I'm an artist
right.
because I was discouraged from practicing art when I was a kid. I was, this is horrible, but this is, reflects parenting in the 80s. I was the smart one. My sister is brilliant, by the way, but she was the artistic one. And so, parents wanted us to have our own lanes. Um, so, I was discouraged from art when I was a kid, and I have always been a writer, but I've always been like creative adjacent. I was the strategist supporting the creatives, you know.
Yeah.
And in the last few years, as I navigate aging and hormone changes and all that, therapy has always been a part of my life, but I had to find different therapeutic support to support my mental health. And I totally accidentally landed in art therapy with an incredible therapist who, I chose her even though I didn't want to do her modality. And through art therapy have come to embrace my inner artist. So now I do watercolor painting and I have an entire I'm looking over here because I have my painting desk is right over there. It's my happy place.
Yeah.
And so I am really grateful that my life experience gave me the pathway to find that I'm not just a strategist, I'm an artist too.
So you got right and left brain going all over the place.
I have my whole life. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that when I was younger, I was like, what can the people like that do?
Yeah. Right.
What do we do when we have that right and left brain? I will say now I know strategy.
Yeah.
A lot of us wind up in strategy.
Well, I'm a Libra, so I get it. I paint, I do a lot of creative stuff. I'm an IT guy by day, so I understand how all of that. And I'll get people that are like, how do you do the creative stuff when you're in IT? It's like it all works together. We only use 10 to 15% of our brain, so we might as well push it full throttle if we can.
Absolutely.
So do you have a copy of your book with you that we can plug?
I don't have a physical copy yet, but it
Okay.
is coming out soon. So ebook first, and then print books and audiobook will follow. It's called You Are a Strategist. Use no BS OKRs to get big things done. And it is my love letter to every single one of us has an inner strategist. And even people who are highly strategic have no idea what that is or what it means. And so this book is my way to try to help people find and connect with their inner strategist and recognize that they have one and give them some simple tools to communicate and have more success with rallying others to their change causes.
So myself, I'm a poet, and I've been writing in various capacities for decades, and I finally got my first book published last November.
Congrats.
And I remember when that book, when that box arrived and what it felt like. What do you envision doing to christen this moment when it's actually pulp in your hand?
You're making me cry asking that question. Like my eyes are welling up with you
Yeah,
asking that question. I think I'm just going to have a really good cry.
yeah,
Like,
good.
yeah, it's the it's been so much work. I have almost given up on it a million times.
Yep.
And I I know my next book will be 75% easier
Yeah. Right.
and through the process. You know, I've learned so much by doing. Um, so I'm excited about next book um, and next books. Um, but, but I'm super grateful to my editor and my designer because they have helped me make this book real.
Yeah.
Um, and they've really like worked with me to make it what I wanted it to be. So future books will be less of a baby,
Yeah.
more of a book.
Uh,
um, but I just have all the feels about this one.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And before we get out of the door here, if anyone wants to reach out, they want to tune into the podcast, pre-order the book, any of the good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
Yep. The one place to find everything is findrc.co. The Thinkydoers podcast, you can type Thinkydoers in anywhere and find me that way. And then the book is youareastrategist.com.
Okay. Sara, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.